Howdy.
What's up, man?
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Exciting.
Yeah, very first episode. Guys, welcome to the very first episode of the Super Bros podcast.
Super Bros.
We are a show dedicated to saving bros everywhere, one bro at a time.
Sir.
This one's for the bros. So without
Yes,
further
sir.
ado, I am Chase Woods.
I am Cameron West.
Yep, we are here together. It's kind of the result of a lot of years of thinking and wanting this to be a bigger project. We just didn't know what that was going to look like. So
Right.
just decided to kind of take the jump and turn it into a podcast. So
Sir.
hopefully you guys get some value out of this. It's not going to be anything too crazy today. We'll talk about more of our origins and where we came from and what the purpose behind the show is. But Cameron, if you want to start us off, feel free. I'll just move this mic a little closer to you so we can get some better audio. But feel free to just talk about who we are, where we came from. And
Yeah, for sure. So this has been a long journey coming. It's been something that I've been really passionate about for quite some time now. This has really been a conglomeration of things that we wish that we had learned and maybe learned painfully along the way. But, there's two things that can happen after pain. You can either let it consume you and go to a dark place and get angry, or you can do what we did and decide to learn from it and help save others from having to go through it.
what's your story on a basic level? I know you and I have been through this a lot, just getting to know you. For context, Cameron and I, we used to live together in college. We became roommates, and he's got a pretty unique background that I don't know if a whole lot of people can speak to. So I think it's definitely different in that capacity. Him and I kind of came from two different sides of the tracks. So if you want to touch on that at all, feel free.
Yeah, for sure. So I actually grew up pretty well off. My parents, they did really well for themselves. I'm happy. They were fiscally, financially responsible. We had all the means necessary to us that we could have ever asked for. And despite all of that, those skills were not taught to me. There are a lot of skills not taught to me by my parents, by my father specifically, that I wish, but we can't live in the past. So I had to go on and kind of navigate a lot of that by myself. So specifically, just with my background, the sexual polarity between my mom and dad were just kind of skewed. Whereas my mom, she was she wore the pants in the family, and then my dad just kind of let her do whatever, which was to the detriment of all of us. So I've seen firsthand the detriment of the skewed sexual polarity, having a weak man that doesn't fill his masculine role, is not being a leader or a teacher, is not fulfilling any of the pillars of strong and healthy masculinity, the masculinity that you need as a son, as any kid, but as any family household needs. So I didn't witness that firsthand in my life, and I saw the detriment of it. So because of that, I had to go out and learn all these things on my own. I had to go become my own man. I had to find some other way to get initiated into masculinity. And that's very difficult to do, and it's kind of unnatural to do with someone that's not your father. I'm seeing more and more now how this is a problem that's on the rise. With the rise of today's modern feminism, it's just like demonizing men and weakening men. And we're seeing the problem. I saw it firsthand, and I'm seeing that it's becoming more and more rampant. It's becoming more and more of an issue. So, that's a big reason that we're here. We just want to, because sadly, there's a lot of boys out there that they're going to struggle to become men. So for whatever reason, God blessed me. He gave me the strength and the power I needed to overcome it. I could have gone off and continued to be weak and sad and lonely, but I just decided to embrace the suffering that we talked about, and grow, and decided to become a man.
What do you feel like was the thing that kind of flipped the switch for you and made you realize, like, hey, this is kind of a problem or a trend that I'm seeing, but I don't necessarily know how to articulate it? What put you on that journey initially?
Yeah, I was in my early 20s, and that's kind of when everything came to the surface. I would have interactions with people, and they just would go about their lives, and they just seemed to be like happier.
Right.
Like things just happened easier for some people, and we would be talking about maybe our backgrounds or how bad things got. And I just remember I'd be listening to my friends like, oh, I can't believe my mom or dad did this or said this, and I'm like, they don't just do that every day. Like, that's not a normal occurrence. Just, you know, things to me that would just be like, okay, well, that's just common discipline. Like, yeah, but but then I realized more and more as more and more people. But the common link was like these people were just happier. Like they loved their parents. They were
Yeah.
encouraged by their parents. And I'm not saying I don't love my parents now. That was the whole thing. But the common link was just that something was different. I wanted to see what made these happier people happy. Like what made them it just seemed like they were able to relate with the world better in a way that I just couldn't. I just was not awakened to reality. I was like, something is not right.
Like a more optimistic approach to the world, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, just everything shifted from, yes, a more optimistic, just a better perspective. Like, they just weren't afraid of others' opinions, seemingly.
Yeah.
But I was so clouded by my own negative opinions of myself. And,
Mm-hmm.
I was so worried about validation and all of that sort of stuff. But I just felt so different. So that was in my early 20s. That was something that really got me thinking. Like something's different. Something really needs to change. Um, and the thing that really flipped that switch into me was I really just felt alone. We were in a really isolated area.
Yeah.
We went to school in a really isolated place. So it really, really felt at that point in my life that I was completely alone. And that's when I really, really got closer to God. And that's something that I think that we can definitely talk about in our podcast is the strength and power and necessity of having some strong moral code, which is found in religion. So whichever religion you choose,
spirituality, a moral compass, or just having faith in something to
right,
kind of drive you a little higher.
But having God in my life showed me that my life had a much more significant purpose, and there was a point to my suffering, a very valid point. So I pursued that path. I could have pursued the path of drugs and alcoholism, and I didn't. I was like, I'm alone, but I'm not broken.
Yeah.
So, but even if I was broken, there's only one way to go. So when you do break, you rebuild stronger.
So you said you kind of had that moment where you're feeling lost and alone. What steps did you start taking once you kind of figured out, like, hey, I have a problem here and I need to fix it? Like, what was the first thing that you did?
So after seeking God, first thing was something needs to change. A change needs to happen. And I said, you know what? I can't change everything else around me. The only thing I can change is myself. So I started this journey of just ultimate accountability. I'm like, I continue to get the same result. I remember it was somewhere around that timeline. I heard the famous phrase that, excuse me, if you insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result.
Right.
And I realized I just kept getting the same results. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm doing the same thing over and over. What is it that I need to change? I took extreme accountability for myself. I said, what is it about myself that I need to change? What can I change? But more importantly, what must change right now? Because I could just see my future. I could see myself going down this path and just getting worse and worse and worse. I was like, I knew deep down that I was meant for more. Because there was a time in my life when, ignorance was bliss. And I just remember I was happy. I was a happy guy. I was like, when I was living that life, just, ignorantly, I didn't really realize all the problems that, all the negative effects that had happened to me in my childhood. I still really hadn't realized how bad it was yet. But I was just living happier. I had more fun. There was more humor. Friends came to me easily. More opportunities came to me more easily. I'm like, how can I get back to that? But how can I rebuild stronger and take what I've learned, would build myself stronger. So somewhere along the way, it was I need to take extreme accountability for myself, my actions. So
Right.
something within me needs to change. It's not everyone else that needs to change because you can't change everyone else.
Yeah.
Because that's not what life is about. Life is about taking accountability of yourself, realizing what you can control, and realizing how your actions can be perceived and interpreted by the world around you.
Yeah, that was kind of when I don't know how far along you were into that when you kind of met me. I mean, probably that following, it was like that summer going into that fall.
Yeah.
You and I kind of started, I guess, collaborating more, and it became kind of like that phrase, like develop from within. That's where it originated from initially, from my perspective. But yeah, it was cool to see like where you were. I didn't get to see you at your worst, fortunately and unfortunately, but I saw you escaping that kind of dark place that you were in. So
Yeah, you'll visibly see it.
Yeah.
You'll visibly see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but when we met, I just remember I was at the heaviest point in my life.
yeah, you were fat.
The thing about the thing about me is I think I'm pretty good at like hiding the how I really feel sometimes.
Yeah. Not really, but yeah.
Well,
Not anymore, but I know you better.
right. Because back in the day, like that was my defense mechanism. But I think I was because around there was never really a time when I was there that I was really just okay with myself. That I was really happy. But when we met, I was at my heaviest. I was like 220.
That's
Right, and it wasn't. I mean, I'm 5'11". Like there's a version of me that could be jacked at
you're
220,
a
but
hefty boy.
yeah, it was all in my stomach. It was not muscle 220.
So I remember so Cameron and I, we lived in the same hall in college. I was just down the hallway from him. I didn't really know him very well, but he was smaller when I initially met you. You were about similar size to how you are now, I would say. Is that far off or no?
It was like 170.
Okay, you were a little smaller then. But the next year after I came back to school,
That was a summer.
it
was like one summer.
yeah, the dude. So there's a place called Black Rocks that we would all jump off of in the summertime, and I remember he told me to come out to Black Rocks. We're walking around, and it was Logan and I, and I saw him turn around. He's like, "What's up, guys?" And he looked huge. Like you were 225, 220. Like you were a big boy, and you're like, "Come on, the water's fine." And like you jumped in, and there was a tsunami at some point. So you're a big man. But then that's how we got into CrossFit. If you want to talk about that at all.
I remember. This is like one of the points in my life when I was like, "Wow, I need to change." Because we both left before that summer, relatively same size, relatively same. I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
And in the span of 3 months, I went from what I must have been 170, and somehow got up to 220. I don't know. I can't even. It doesn't register to
The
me.
mass gainer, man.
Yeah, all I did was eat fried sushi and eat mass gainer. That's all I. Yeah, but in the span of 3 months, I came back 220, fat whale, and Chase. Chase was just like ripped. Like, what the heck happened? And I remember I texted him afterwards.
Make me pretty again or something.
Right, and I was like, "Can you make me pretty?" And we started. Well, he took me to one CrossFit class. I remember it was in September, and looking back, it was a pretty simple one. It was like running and then some shoulder press.
Yeah.
And if I were to do it now, I'd just laugh at it.
I don't even remember what it was.
It was just running and shoulder press.
Yeah.
Pretty much it. I remember like I was dry heaving by the tree out there. And I was like, I was in so much pain, but at the same time, I was like, yes, this is for me.
Right.
Like, this is the change in my life.
The challenge we needed. Yeah. Oh, hit it? Okay. We'll take a quick break. All right. So, back from break, guys. if you haven't been watching already, welcome back to Super Bros Podcast. This is our very first episode. We're just kind of talking about our origin stories, where we came from, how we met, what put us on the journey to self-development. So, again, hope you guys find some value in this. It's nothing crazy for the first episode, but we're looking to hit all the topics that you guys can want to know about going forward. So, yeah. So, Cameron, you mentioned that initially when we met following that summer, that's when you got into CrossFit. That was the challenge you needed. So,
Right.
if you want to speak on that at all?
Right. All right. And this isn't going to be an episode just like praising and worshiping CrossFit. It's just, it was something different and something challenging that I needed. And that as a man, that's what you need. I needed a challenge to overcome. I needed something to prove to myself.
You're good. I'm just moving my chair.
I needed something to prove myself that I could get through things that were difficult. So I wanted to use the pain and suffering that I went through internally in my own mind and use it to strengthen me like physically, which was a really cool thing for me. So that was the outlet that CrossFit was definitely the outlet that helped bring out the physical warrior within me.
Right. So I guess I don't remember how much weight you actually lost, but you were 220. How much weight did you actually lose after going through? We did it for like 3 months straight. We would just go to the 5 a.m. class every day when we were in school and just pig out on breakfast. But it's a whole different story for another time.
So,
but yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was talking about. So yeah, we went for 3 months straight at 5 a.m., but I never stopped doing CrossFit. And I got to a point where the only workouts I was doing was CrossFit. And I got to a point where if I wasn't sweating profusely after a workout, then it just wasn't a workout. Which, looking back now, probably not the best way to go about it. But I want to say it was probably like a 1 or 2 year journey, but I lost like 40 pounds. I was down to 180, but I was like, pretty shredded, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a good word for it? Yeah. But as soon as I got into that shape and I just, I could visibly see my abs without flexing. I just had muscle. I could do things that I never thought I'd be able to do. I'm over here doing handstands and snatches and just the cool thing about CrossFit, I'm not trying to worship CrossFit, but it's so cool because it's so well-rounded and it's going to make you do things that you would just never, ever think to do.
Challenging your brain too, to an extent.
Yeah. That's what it was. So within like a 1 or maybe a little less than 2 year journey, I lost 40 pounds and I never gained it back.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, that's I guess your initial story. Where are you at now? What kind of things are you working on? What I guess what does life look like for Cameron right now as we stand?
Well, right now I'm working. I work a remote job, which is a blessing. It allows me to do things like this in my spare time because there's no commute, no drive time. It's cool. So I work that job remotely. I also have three other side things going on in my life, which is pretty cool to say. So we have a medical device that we're working on. I don't know if I should say the name of the company or
not. I would hold off. I would just for, I guess, secret squirrel purposes.
Yeah. It's always good to grow in secrecy. So developing a medical device, which is really cool, that touches on to my entrepreneurship and my one of my strengths and drives for just learning. So that's really cool to have there. Also doing the coaching business. We have masculinity coaching. I have it's called The Man Within. And that's just at the beginning of this year, I hired a coach, just a life coach.
Right.
Very similar thing to what I want to do in my life. I just want to do it specifically with masculine roots and helping men find their true masculinity. And now we're doing this podcast as well.
Yeah.
And among all of that, a myriad of other just investments and other, opportunities are always open, and I'm always looking for them. So, as far as where I'm at and what I'm doing everything that I can fit in. That being said, I focus specifically on a small number of things. I'm open to a large number of things because you should always be learning. Every day is an opportunity for learning and growing, and you should be doing that every day anyway. Luckily, this remote job is a blessing. I'm able to navigate that. And then the second half of my day, I can focus completely on, this podcast, my coaching, and also the medical device business.
Yeah, you guys, you can't script this. Like this is Cameron dropping knowledge bombs for you. Like you said, if you're trying to be great, you're trying to work on multiple things at once. I would recommend, like you said, just honing in on one thing and really getting good at that and not overwhelming yourself, because the journey is long. You know, it's a grind. You don't want to oversaturate yourself with different steps to take, because that's when you don't do anything. And inaction is worse than maybe one thing a day that's going to get you where you want to go. So think about that. I was going to ask you, so The Man Within, and if you haven't already, go look it up. He's got a website. It's essentially, landing page. It's going to turn into more. We're looking into building YouTube, Instagram platforms, but it's essentially a mentorship page as well, right? For men who are looking for purpose and who are looking for some sort of mentorship and motivation direction, right?
Yeah. You want me to talk more about?
I just didn't know if you wanted to speak on that at all, or more.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's the Super Bros podcast, but if I have a chance to talk about the Man Within,
Dude,
I'll do it.
Shameless plug.
Yeah, shameless plug, Man Within. Look, this is just one of those things that I've felt compelled to do for a very long time. That's coaching men and teaching them the things that I wish I had known. Because for a very long time in my life, I just felt weak, and to put it into one word, it just felt wrong. Like my existence was just wrong. Everything about it. And looking back now, it's clear to see, hindsight's 2020. Just besides that, it was a very weak mindset. It was just, men were demonized and everything we did was wrong, and just masculinity, toxic masculinity. And I don't know what it was. I just kind of like bought into that. And I was a very closed-minded, very judgmental person, and I was just unhappy. I was very unhappy. And I went through this journey that I talked about earlier, and I had that internal change, and I realized, like, wow, it's basically the complete opposite. Like, I'm not wrong. I'm just a man. I'm supposed to be a man. I'm supposed to embrace the strength within me. I'm supposed to embrace the warrior.
Living fearlessly.
Yeah. It's not, being a man isn't toxic. But anyway, the Man Within, that's what I'm trying to teach men to flip that mindset. And,
If you're interested, guys, in receiving any kind of one-on-one coaching with Cameron, again, The Man Within, I would encourage you to look it up. Follow him on Instagram at CA West, correct?
At CA West 34.
CA West 34 on Instagram. We're trying to help as many people as possible on different platforms. So if you guys have any kind of curiosity about that, feel free to hit him up. DM him on Instagram. I'm not going to share his number because it's weird, but yeah. themanwithin.com. Should I talk about myself? We'll put it in the description below, or in the captions. So
yeah, I've been talking a lot here. Let's let Chase kind of share his story.
You want me to do it? Should I go full send on him?
I think the people want it.
All right, so I killed like 50 people, right? No, I'm just kidding. So my name is Chase Woods. I am from Michigan originally, same place as Cameron. I guess I had a little bit of a different upbringing than Cameron did. We weren't like extremely wealthy by any means. Had some really kind of salt of the earth parents who they were raising 3 kids and just kind of trying to do the best that they could. my parents are both extremely hardworking people. They're very successful now, and they were very successful in their individual fields before I was even born. So they kind of they put a lot on hold for the family, and they sacrificed a lot into their kids. But kind of the opposite of what you experienced with your dad, I had a dad who was like an ultra alpha male. Like he, so I mean, for context, come from a military family. I'm an officer in the Army right now, and my dad he was a Green Beret for about 15 years. Well, total service time was 15 years. I don't know how long he actually operated for, but he raised us in a household that held some certain values very, very closely. And growing up, there was a high level of discipline in my home. We did things a certain way. He lived his life a certain way through a certain ethos, and you know, I think that was very beneficial to our growing up, like how we came up as kids. But he had a lot of demons he was fighting, you know, that caused him to maybe not be as emotionally available as I would have liked him to be. And I never really understood the reasoning behind that. A lot of my life I spent kind of seeking his approval. I think a lot of sons do seek their father's approval in some capacity, because you know that's your first role model essentially, is your father. And I mean, he still is to this day. But I went through a number of years where I was resentful towards him. I didn't appreciate what he did for me because of the way that it made me feel and how he kind of delivered that love, I guess, if you want to call it that. It was all out of love, looking back. But he was a Green Beret. He really wanted us to be better than him, and he was very hard on my brothers and I, especially me being the oldest. And that kind of led me down the sports path. I initially had I didn't really have like a purpose in life. I was just kind of a normal kid, just existing for the most part. And when I was about 14, had a breakout football game. I realized that I was like finally good at something. So I was like, oh my God, I can actually do something really well. I can use my body as a tool to be successful. And so I talked to my dad, and I told him like, hey Dad, I want to play college football. Like that's my new life goal, my passion. I want to play for Ohio State. I want to be D1. Yeah. And for everything that my dad wasn't, he was so much more. And I am super thankful that he actually took well to me saying that. So he sat me down. He explained to me how hard that road was going to be. And he told me essentially straight up, he's like, you know, you're going to be alone a lot. There's going to be a lot of people that don't understand you. And you're going to have to work really hard all the time, and you're never going to be able to give that up. Like you have to be locked in at all times. So, you know, 14 years old, you don't really understand that, but every single day from that point onward, he pushed me to be better. No matter how much I hated him for it, he pushed me to be the person that I am today. And all the while, you know, trying to gain that performance mindset, he was struggling with his own problems. He had an alcohol addiction, which it almost crippled our family. He fell into that pretty heavily, and I started to get a little older before I realized like what exactly was going on. But we had an intervention eventually, and it kind of changed how he approached certain things. He kind of quit cold turkey, and he's been sober for, I want to say, probably almost 13, 14 years now. So he's a tough motherfucker. Yeah. You're a tough motherfucker, Dad. But yeah, so dealing with that, the effects of that had a pretty significant impact on my mental health and just how I view the world. but he kind of pushed me into the athletics side of things. And coming up, didn't have any offers out of high school to play college football, so took a chance on myself. And I wouldn't change anything. I always encourage people to believe in themselves so much that they believe they're great before they're even good. That's a really important quote that I live by. And I walked on to my college team, same school that Cameron went to, Northern Michigan University. Yeah. I was able to achieve that goal. So I walked on not once, but twice because I got cut first time. I just wasn't ready. I wasn't ready yet for that goal. So I walked on a second time, and then I realized that it wasn't really what I wanted. I just wanted to accomplish the goal. I didn't really want what came after it, and I didn't really love the sport of football anymore. So I, again, went through a season where there were a lot of changes in my life, kind of like what you experienced, heartbreaks, setbacks, injuries, things of that nature. And it shaped kind of how I viewed the world. And I realized that there was a lot of stuff I didn't know. And I sat down and I asked myself, why don't I know these things? What can I do to get better? So it just became kind of this like constant pursuit of, how do I do this on YouTube? How do I do this? How do I get better at this? How do I dress? Like anything and everything that you could think about in terms of being a better dude overall. Like I probably looked into it, and Cameron and I put each other onto a lot of different resources. And then as I was walking away from football, I had a good mentor of mine. His name is John Evans, and I'll plug him shamelessly till the day I die, because the dude, I mean, it might sound a little dramatic, but he kind of saved my life in a way. And if he gets to see this, I hope he appreciates it. But thank you, John. He showed me CrossFit, and realized that I wanted to compete in CrossFit. So started pursuing that when I was about 19. Well, it was more like 20 years old, but I'm 25 now. So come a pretty long way in my competitive development. I've competed a few times on a bigger stage, still kind of working on breaking through to that next level, but it's a constant pursuit of excellence and just taking where life wants you to be. But yeah, got into CrossFit. I met Cameron. We kind of started training together, became a brotherhood. We moved in, became roommates. And then we just went on a lot of different adventures together and came up as men. And, we're here now. We're living in the same house. It was kind of an idea that we talked about. I joined the military after college and then deployed for a little while. And while I was away, we tried to essentially create the same thing that we're doing now, but it was over Zoom. And we'd have like 30-minute blocks of time that we could talk on Zoom. Right. So it was kind of not really silly, but we were trying our best what we had. So I eventually was like, hey, dude, why don't you just move in with me? And so I got a house. He's here now, and we're just trying to make other people better too. So yeah, right now, still in the military, looking at possibly transitioning or taking things to a different realm, but the dreams are still the same. Still trying to be as great as I can in CrossFit, take it as far as possible, take it as far as I can in the military. And then I'm also building a one-on-one coaching service. It's going to be based around fitness, because I think the first step on anybody's journey is fitness related. That's one thing you can have a lot of control over, is going to the gym. That's the first battle that people should be fighting during the day, is getting something physical in, and just winning that battle within themselves. So it's a fitness-based coaching service. It's going to be focused on more than that. It'll be self-development as well. But yeah, it's just kind of built around that personal brand. I am Chase Woods. I want to show people that you can come from humble beginnings and turn your life into something incredible just through dedication, hard work, humility, and being open to the knowledge that's presented to you and just surrounding yourself with good people. Yeah. So that's kind of what we've tried to do here. Still a work in progress. Got a huge network of people that we want to tap into with this show and hopefully bring you guys some value. So that's my story.
Yeah, you did such a great job. I feel like I gotta go back and retell mine. I barely shared anything.
But, no, you did good, man.
Yeah, but you touched on a few points there that was really important to me, that really stuck out. And we can...
Which one?
We can unpack a lot of them.
Yeah.
But the one that I really wanted to point out was the need for a brotherhood.
Yeah.
You just really, really need to have someone that you can lean on, someone that you can rely on. A like-minded individual that wants to grow and become successful too in all areas of life. And that's one of the biggest reasons that we clicked, that we became friends. Because you're right, the road to success, it's a lonely one. And you touched on that too. I was like, wow. I'm thinking back, just little like nuggets of memories that made me think about change, that made me think that maybe I was a little bit different. And one of those was, it was so hard for me to relate with other people. If you're having difficulty relating to a lot of people, there's things that need to change about you, but also at the same time, maybe they're just not the right people for you. Yeah. And for me, I was trying to make everyone else happy, and I was not taking any time to think about myself. I was trying to fulfill a different role. And that was one of the major factors that got me down that road to depression. But, if there are any regrets in my life, which, I don't live by regrets. I live by, you either live or you learn. And in this case, I learned. I wish that I had spent more time with people around people like you.
I appreciate that.
'Cause we were friends, we were roommates in college and all that stuff, but I still decided to hang around kids that I thought were my friends. Now I never talk to them anymore, and I probably never will ever again. And I was with them, but I was lonely because there was only a select few amount of people that I could talk to and have a deep intellectual conversation with. I could, talk about business or fitness or my future. Right. God forbid you talk about your future. And I think that's a big reason why I was so lonely, but it's so important to be around like-minded people like that.
Well, I appreciate that, man. That means a lot. I've only ever tried to be myself, I guess, but I totally understand where you're coming from. There's all this outside pressure to be something that you're not. And I feel like people who are truly in touch with themselves, they realize I'm meant for more than this, whether or not it comes down later or earlier. Some people are just born with that. They're like, I am destined for greatness. And
yeah, there's only one way to get there.
Yeah. I mean, that moment came for me when I was, a teenager, seeing my dad, deal with his problems and seeing the community that I grew up in. It was kind of like, I don't want to be a statistic. I want to be the outlier. Right. And I didn't realize that was the choice that I was making. It was just kind of an emotional decision. I was like, I'm committing to this. I'm swearing this off. I wanted to be somebody that my little brothers could look up to and say, I didn't have to grow up in this shit. I could be somebody regardless of what my parents were going through.
That's a big difference that is the difference between a boy and a man. Whereas a boy would see that pain and say, you know what, I want to make everyone else feel that pain. Whereas a man says, I want to be the hero in the story and make sure no one else around me has to feel that pain. There always needs to be an emotionally compelling reason for why you're doing what you're doing. So, I was I'm thinking about your story, and it's very moving, and you have people close in your life that you truly want to help, and that's emotionally compelling. You want to help them. That's clear. And there's other people, and I'm thinking about my own story and other people that have similar stories to me, whereas, You know, it wasn't so much about my family. It was about me getting out of this hell and,
Yeah.
you know, how do I become more than myself? And it kind of went full circle. And I'm like, yeah, I could have tried to make everyone down to my level too, because it's so much easier to try to drag someone down to your level than it is to go through that pain and suffering and grow and build yourself up. But that's what I decided to do. I was like, I'm going to. That's what I decided to do. I was like, you know what? There are all these other men out there that are feeling the same way I am, and there's just no sense of it. It's making everyone weaker. It's making everyone more miserable.
Yeah.
I was like, I am going to get through this, and I'm going to help as many people as I can too, and teach other men to do that as well. We all have a very significant meaning. We all have a very significant purpose. That purpose is to share and spread love in our own specific ways. And I'm not going to leave this earth the same as I found it. I'm going to leave it better.
That was really cool. That was good stuff. But no, for real, that was awesome, man. So we'll move on from that now to we had one question come up on the Super Bros page from a friend of ours, actually. I won't say his name here, but it wasn't so much a question, but it was more of like, hey, spread this message. So this is, another part of what the show is kind of spreading a positive message around masculinity. We say that this one's for the bros, and it's true. Nothing against all the gal pals out there, but yeah, we love women, but we just noticed that there's such a void with positive male role models in today's society, and you see it in all these different situations where guys just don't understand that it's okay to positively or emotionally express themselves, and a lot of times they turn to things that are detrimental to their health. They turn towards violence. There's a huge uprise in violent crime, and I think a lot of it stems back to, number one, not having a positive male role model, like having a good father in the household. And I was very lucky to have a good role model in my household. But also not having a way to emotionally express themselves. So the message that this friend of ours wanted to spread is that it's okay to be masculine in a highly effeminate world, right? 2023, we've seen a huge rise in all these different agendas. I'm not going to go into it, but it's okay to be a man. At the end of the day, I guess what does it mean to be a man to you? Because I can say what it means to be a man to me, but I'll let you speak on that first, and then I'll touch on that, and then I think we're probably good for today. So here you go.
Actually, it's funny because this was one of my first videos, was defining masculinity. Yeah. So a man is a lot of things. A man is not just some mean, overpowering person that just wants to control everything. A man is someone who steps up as a leader and inspires those around him to be a leader. So there's 4 pillars to masculinity. Okay. There's 4 pillars to a man: to be a leader, a mentor, a warrior, and a friend. A leader is someone that inspires others to lead, but they're not afraid to go first. So as Corey Wayne says, to lead is to go first. You're not afraid to shout out Corey Wayne. You're not afraid to step up to the plate and do what it takes to lead that unit. So if you're in a family unit, the father, he's the leader of that family. He's the one that has experience. He's the one that puts on that heavy burden, and he's not afraid to endure the pain and the responsibility that it takes to make sure that family is protected and provided for. So that's not just a family unit. It could be in any unit. You're an officer. You're in a leadership role. Like, you know what it takes to make sure everything's accounted for. Yeah.
I pretty much agree with what Cameron's saying. a man's not somebody who is aggressive all the time without reason, right? So, I think Jordan Peterson has an excellent quote. Like, you shouldn't be this docile, friendly creature, right? Like as a man, you should possess the ability to be a very violent individual, right? You should have skills that make you dangerous. You should be competent in self defense. You should be stronger than people around you. You should have the capacity to be aggressive, but the difference between a boy and a man is how he controls that. So when things happen around you that you don't have control over, rather than reacting emotionally, you react logically, right? That's the difference between someone who leads and someone who follows. Leaders react logically and they can make sound decisions under stressful situations. And that's part of the problem, right? We have a lot of young men who react emotionally to things because they've never been taught how to think logically and think about the consequences of their actions. So, if there's anything that you take away from this, it's okay to feel the way that you're feeling. It's okay to feel that aggression and those emotions and the anger and the sadness and all of those things, but you can't take it out on the world, right? Because the world's it's not a very forgiving place. So understanding how you feel, but also knowing how to navigate that, I think is an important part of being a man. Because when your emotions rule your life is ruled by emotions, right? You're not able to make those sound decisions. And then you said mentor, correct?
Yeah.
Mentor is the next one. I'll pass it off to you.
Well, I was actually probably going to tie into the friendship one, but when it comes to being a friend, this is why brotherhood is so important. And when I say brotherhood, as in a group of men, we do have emotions and we do need to express them. We do need to get them out. And it's imperative that you do it either alone with God or around a group of other brothers specifically.
Yeah. You never know who's going through a similar experience and what they like. I don't know. I can think of a lot of different examples, but it's so good to have somebody to bounce ideas off of. And that's another reason that I brought the people in this house together, is because it's important to have a tribe, right? Like, nobody wants to go through life alone. Life is hard enough without, having to be by yourself. So having good male role models and people that you get along with can really go a long way when you're faced with tough situations or situations that you've never experienced before. Because a lot of people, they might have experienced the same thing, they just never talked about it. They never articulated what they did. So a lot of times, if I'm going through something or if he's going through something, we just say, "Hey, what would you do in this situation? How do we bounce? How do we figure this out together?" And it's like, "What was your experience?" That's one of the best things you can do for your self development, is to understand that you don't know anything. As soon as you admit that I don't know what I'm doing, the world opens up for you and it becomes a much more positive place because you have a solution. It's the people around you.
You also made a very good point that everyone offers a diverse background.
Yeah.
And being around a group of people like that, they can really shine light on things that you would not have ever thought of.
Well, I'll wrap it up on that note. So, few key things we could take away from today. Oh, we didn't talk about the mentor yet. All right, we won't wrap it up yet. You want me to talk about the mentor? Okay, we'll do it live.
We'll try to think of a good transition. Oh, that makes
Oh yeah, so that makes me think of the mentor. I'm keeping that. I'm not editing it. That'll be really funny. Yeah, so a mentor, right? Having, kind of going off what I mentioned about having a tribe, right? So having men who have a multitude of different experiences. We have people who are older than us, younger than us, different backgrounds, different cultures. We have a really good group of people that we can lean into at any given time, regardless of how far across the world they are. Like, we have connections all over the place. So just when you think of a man, when you think of a good man, and I think of a mentor, it's someone who is willing to give knowledge purely out of the respect and understanding that it's going to benefit you, right? Like, a good mentor, they give purely to give. They have nothing to gain from it. They've already been there. They've already done that. They've already experienced that part of their life, and a good mentor is somebody who is just giving because it feels good, right? Like if I were to have a piece of knowledge and keep it to myself, right? That's almost worse than never having it in the first place, because what service are you doing to the world to allow you to have that knowledge, right? Because there's somebody out there who was in the same spot as you when you first started off. And like everyone was a beginner at some point. They're just looking for that one thing to get them in the door or to help them do better at their job or figure out something at the gym. Like there were so many times growing up where I'm working out with my dad, right? And I just couldn't break through those plateaus. And being, a 14-year-old kid, you don't really have the foresight to understand that, if you quit, quitting is forever, right? If I didn't have a mentor who understood the game, who understood training, who understood what it meant to push through things time after time after time, even when it got hard, I probably would have quit a long time ago, and I wouldn't be where I am right now, right? So when I think of a good man, he's a mentor who's willing to give purely out of the benefit of the person that he's giving that knowledge to.
So as it relates to masculinity, like men, you're supposed to be the ones out there, taking on the risk, getting that experience, trying different things, not being afraid to, facing your fears and just going up and just doing it. And as you do that, as you gain more of those experiences, you now have that wisdom to share. So, that's a big part of being a man, is giving and sharing and helping the next one align, because a man and a leader, like I said, inspires those around him. He's not just selfish. Doesn't just keep that to himself. Like like a good man, a good leader, just his presence alone makes other men want to be men.
Okay. I think it's a great point to wrap it up at. Again, guys, thank you so much for watching. This has been episode 1 of the Super Bros podcast. This one's for the bros, saving one bro at a time, everywhere, all around the world, forever and ever, throughout the universe, never ending. We're constantly looking to get better. So any feedback you guys have, we appreciate it. We'll continue to upgrade the set. This is a pretty up and coming studio, if that's what you want to call it. But this is definitely an episode 1 set. We're looking to get like sound stuff and everything like that. So we're excited to have you guys join this. If you've gotten this far, please like this video, subscribe, share it to your friends. Any guys that you think might need to hear something that you've heard on this podcast today, please. We want to help as many people as we can around the world. So, yeah.
Any questions you have, throw them our way and we'll unpack them.
Yeah. Follow me on Instagram at I am Chase Woods, and then at CA West 34 on Instagram for this guy. I don't know do you have a YouTube channel yet?
I do.
He does have a YouTube channel. Is it just
it's Cameron West 6634.
Cameron West 6634. Should probably change your name to Big Papa Cam or something.
Gotta figure out how to do that.
Something catchy. But I'm at I am Chase Woods on YouTube as well. And yeah, follow the Super Bros podcast on Instagram. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.
Super Bros.